All right, you guys, I got two of my soul brothers with me today. So we're going to have a great wrap session on neurofeedback therapy and ways to optimize your brain and your spiritual development, and many other things. And before we get rolling into all the technical stuff, Matt and Wade, what have you guys been up to since we were last here? How long has it been? A few months.
Has it been a year since we
Has
had
it
our
been
last
that long?
podcast? Something like that.
Feels like just the other day.
Yeah. Time flies. BIOptimizers just keeps growing. I mean, Wade and I started this with $100 and we bootstrapped it to about $100 million run rate currently.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's been a great journey. And, the game is always taking one product at a time and taking the time it takes to create a best-in-class product. So our next one's going to be electrolytes. We've been working on it for a couple of years.
I'm excited to try that.
Yeah, I think the big thing a lot of people are missing with electrolytes is potassium is really what most people are deficient in, and that's really what drives the water inside the molecules.
Mm-hmm.
The sodium will pull water out. Potassium pushes it in. So yeah, it's a potassium forward formula. Then we also have the full spectrum of minerals. We have ionic minerals, which we tested in the lab, and it'll drive more of the minerals in the cells. So that's a synergistic element.
Mm-hmm.
We've innovated on sweeteners. We only use protein-based sweeteners now in almost all of our stuff.
So that will help stabilize the blood sugar. It won't throw it around.
We're not using any sugar alcohols. We're not using stevia. Again, some people have issues with those things.
Mm-hmm.
But the other big one too is on the flavor side. I don't know if you know this, but almost everyone's using maltodextrin as a flavor carrier.
That's not good for my body.
Right. So we had to innovate on that front. So we're using fibers to carry the flavors.
Oh, good.
So yeah, we had to, again, we're the only ones that our manufacturer on the flavoring side is doing that with. And again, it's just taking every single component saying, how do we push this to the next level?
Yeah. Well, you guys do a great job. I mean, my whole family uses all sorts of your products all the time, and I give them to my friends and encourage them to my students. And often whenever we have class here, we put all sorts of your stuff out to let them try it. And the other thing you guys do is don't all your products have a 365-day money-back guarantee? I mean, how can you go wrong with that?
Yeah. And our refund rate has got to be one of the lowest in the industry.
Well, industry standards are 3 to 4%, and we're down in the 0.25 range.
Yeah.
And we have, real human customer service. We have one of our largest teams in the company is our customer service team. So people are refreshed when they actually talk to a competent individual that cares about what that person's goals, needs, desires, feedback. And most of the refunds that we have are just simply a minor nuance. Maybe they selected the wrong product, or, we have something that would be more appropriate for what they were looking for, or we simply refer them to another great company that says, "No, we don't do that, but those guys, I trust those guys and go there." So the idea is, when it comes down to people's money, I remember when I first started out in the industry, and I'd save up every dime I have to get a can of protein or whatever the latest thing was, and a lot of those ended in disappointment.
Yeah.
And so one of the things is we always have a seat in the room of our customer. And, it's a trust relationship that when someone puts whatever their, energy units is, their stored energy units of labor is essentially what money is, and they're appropriating it on the hopes or ambitions that they have. And there's a trust relationship. And that goes not just within that relationship, but also to the industry itself.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if there's, we have the 4 values, which is, does the product do what it says it does? 2, do they know how to take it for optimal benefit? 3, is it delivered in a timely fashion?
Right.
And 4, if anything didn't go fully, completely as advertised, we just give you your money back so that you can redeploy that in the industry to whatever your needs or ambitions are. That way, I call it keeping everything karmically clean.
Yeah, it is and it's so rare in the supplement industry. It's just, that's a, I don't need to tell you guys, the supplement industry is as bad as the CBD industry and the marijuana industry. And I mean, I remember I read a scientific paper someone did analyzing lots of different supplements, and it found that 90% of the supplements did not have the ingredients listed on the bottle. That there was just one problem after another, and a lot of it was oxidized and outdated, and it was just like it was not a good look at all.
No, and just to elaborate on that. So when we decide, okay, we're going to build a new formula, the first thing we do is we source raws from all around the world to find the best versions.
Right.
And I would say 80 to 90% of any raw is either not at all what they say it is. I'll use vitamin K as an example. So we're working on a omega capsule. It's going to be like a 10-in-1, but we're trying to find a good vitamin K. And only one of the 9 samples we tested came out as vitamin K. We don't even know what the other ones are.
Unbelievable.
So if a company's not testing all the providers and the raws, they're going to probably, maybe unknowingly, have stuff that just doesn't work.
The mushroom industry is another one that's, I've had Chase and Mimi on my show. They're the distributors of AHCC, and they're experts on mushrooms. And they were telling me about all the scams in the mushroom industry.
It's
like,
huge.
holy shit, that's unbelievable. Most people are just eating sawdust.
Cellulase.
Yeah,
it's
just
basically
garbage.
Cellulose. And we had a fellow by the name of Jeff Chilton informed us a long time ago. He's a 50-year mushroom farmer who's been doing it up in the Pacific Northwest for a long time. And he gave us a real thorough education of what happened in that industry. One element, I think, for listeners when they're whatever supplement company they're investigating or, what they're going to ingest in their body, generally you want a good founder story. I started out in the industry a long time ago. I've literally worked in every single facet of the field, from the warehouse to design to retail to owning my own store to wholesale to international to manufacturing, formulation,
research,
all of it, the whole 9 yards. And the one common element that I found within all of the great products was the original founder story. Usually it was a heroic quest. Something happened. They heard about this. They couldn't find the right ingredients. They went on a crusade, got really versed in it, decided to manufacture it for themselves, distribute it amongst, their circle of influence. And that grew enough that eventually a company was formed. And then there's a critical stage that happens. And Matt alluded to this earlier. Like, we bootstrap the company from the get-go, because when you take on an investor, there are elements within a fiduciary responsibility or capital inputs that now influence the decision tree of how that company goes. And then at certain levels of scale, you run into supply chain issues. So you get a great brand for many, many years. You hear about there was a sale or an investment group or whatever. That's usually another clue that you want to catch. If your favorite company is taking on money, where's that money come from? Is it a good strategic? Is it someone that understands the industry? Is there intent behind it? We've had the good fortune to be able to maintain the integrity of our original design, which is to help people live a stronger, longer, better life. That's the ambition, the fundamental core of why someone was going to do anything for their health.
Yeah.
So that becomes the North Star of everything. And then, like Matt said, can we make a best-in-class product? And 2, go through the rigorous detail that's involved in order to legitimately validate that it's a best-in-class product. And even after that, still remaining open that as new information comes in or new technology is developed or new research uncovers elements that you didn't consider before, that you're still willing to continue to reevaluate your current formulation and make upgrades. So you'll see some of our products like Masszymes, for example, which was our original first supplement. We're on like the 4th generation of that particular product. It's been an industry leader in each one of its incarnations. But perfection is not really a destination. It's a commitment to excellence.
That's one of the things I've always loved about you guys is that, because I talk to you more than I talk to Matt. But, almost every time we get together, you're telling me, oh, we're restructuring or revising or testing this or upgrading that. And I'm like, wow, that's quite rare in the supplement industry. Usually it's, once people get the magic formula they can make money off, it just runs forever like a printing press, and they don't really care about whether it works or not.
Well, something that's just hardwired into me is the belief that there's always another level.
Yeah.
And I've got the drive to go hit that in the things that I'm interested in, which is kind of how Metamorphosis came about as well, which we'll get into today. But it's the same approach with the supplements. One of the things we're excited about is we're going to be deploying almost $2 million the next 12 months on human clinicals, animals. So we're going to prove that we're the best.
Good.
Category by category.
No, fantastic.
We already know because we do the in vitro testing, not just with our stuff, like with the enzymes. We bought 20 of the top competitors and we beat them all. Interestingly, I'm not going to name names, but the number one brand in retail was the worst out of the 20.
It doesn't surprise me at all. Usually the more marketing they put behind something, the worse it is, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it's disappointing. You brought up CBD as an example. We were chatting about this yesterday. That industry is cratered because there's a lot of people selling garbage.
Yep.
And then the consumers get burned.
Yeah.
And then they stop believing, and then the retailers stop carrying those products.
Yeah.
So it creates that cycle where it is a good molecule and there's some good people doing good stuff.
Yeah.
But the unscrupulous companies kind of wrecked it for everyone else,
Yeah. And the other thing that's a challenge, but a reality, is that making top-notch products requires top-notch ingredients, which means you got to
cost more.
You got to go to the, organic and biodynamic farmers, and it costs you a lot more. And so one of the things that's true of food and supplements is people think food is just energy. So they shop for food like they shop for gasoline. And most people don't really have enough depth of understanding to realize that you could have 20 different enzymes in front of you that could be wildly different in quality. Like you said, no matter how popular one is. And so what do? They just buy the cheapest thing. And so you get people like, how many of these calcium supplements aren't even absorbed? That's a real issue out there, but people are spending tons of money on shit, meaning it just ends up in their poop and it doesn't do anything for them. So the public mentality is actually often funding and supporting garbage products because they don't know what they're doing, but they don't realize that it's not actually helping their body. In fact, there's some, as you know, both of you know, there's so much stuff put into supplements that isn't really healthy for the body.
Yeah.
And, things that make long shelf life and all this other stuff.
Yeah. Excipients and fillers.
Yeah. And so people don't realize gums. Yeah. Anything with gums in it just messes my body up. But I think since COVID, people are really starting to wake up more to the importance of food and to the importance of good supplementation. And, for a lot of these people, it's like do or die because they got vaccinated and now they're really sick and they're struggling. So it's, and then you got the Maha movement, which is waking people up on a lot of levels. And, probably for the first time, millions of people are actually thinking about what's in their food. What are these dyes and colorings and all this stuff. So I think it's a slow roll, but the thing that I like about it is the deeper we go into this realization of quality of source materials, ultimately, the more people become aware that the soil and the water and the environment is actually the foundation of all of it. And so it's going to actually, I see, bring us back to a much more earth conscious community, of people where they realize, okay, we got to stop poisoning the planet with pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and rodenticides and glyphosate and people are going to start paying attention. So, my dream is to see two groups of people become really important in society, farmers and teachers.
Mhm.
I think those are the two most underappreciated groups of people professionally that are two of the most important people in any culture. And, a number of my friends over the years have been school teachers, and they've expressed, for example, how frustrated they are with the curriculum and how it doesn't work and they hate teaching it. But every time they go to try to make changes, they get shut down by the school board. And I know at least two of my friends that were teachers who just quit. They said, I can't do this because I'm not able to educate kids anymore. And so I think, we're going to have to go through a revolution of our education system, and we're going to have to really start getting clear on what organic farming actually is, because the food industry's stolen that whole concept and bastardized it to hell. And, biodynamic farming is awesome. And there's a number of Korean farming. There's a few really good, proper farming systems, but ultimately, because as you guys both know, I've taught countless thousands and thousands, if not millions of people how to eat better, be it through my books or through my education programs or articles or podcasts. But when people actually start eating real food, they notice so many changes in how they feel, how they look, how well they recover, their body weight, their body shape, their mental clarity, their sex drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get right back to Hippocrates, food is man's best medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, you guys are really establishing the importance of quality and research and constantly improving in the supplement industry. But ultimately, what makes your supplements good goes right back to what makes food good, goes right back to what we have to do to take care of the environment, or you can't have those ingredients, which is what we got to do to take care of ourselves. So I think COVID in many ways was, the devil works in mysterious ways.
Millions of people are carrying parasites, and most don't even know it. In fact, the chances are good that you have one or more parasites inside you right now, leeching off your nutrients and strength. But before you get all freaked out about it, here is some good news. Organifi's Parasite Cleanse Kit contains a unique and specialized blend of carefully chosen natural elements that help locate, kill, and remove unwanted guests and pests from the body. Like a magnet finding iron in the sand, these ingredients adhere to the toxins and parasites and pull them out of hiding, ultimately removing them from your body. This two-step combination of 100% natural ingredients includes the Parasite Cleanse capsules and the Bind and Restore tincture, creating an easy-to-use cleanse that is perfect to help get rid of your unwanted guests. Now is a great time to try Organifi's Parasite Cleanse Kit and save 20%. Go to Organifi.com/Chek20 and use the promo code Chek20. That's Organifi.com/CHEK20 and use the code Chek20 for a 20% discount.
Yeah. I think Pink Floyd did an album called The Division Bell.
What's that?
They did an album called The Division Bell. I remember, I think that's what really happened during COVID. Ironically, we exploded through the COVID pandemic as people became acutely aware that, their freedom was under attack through the medical industry. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow. We never anticipated that. And one of the unadvertised benefits, I think, of when a person embraces that pathway is it starts to reawaken their intuitive awareness about their physiology,
Totally,
and how things are impacting it. And once you start down that road, it's just an exciting path of self-discovery and expansion, but it's an expansion in an internal awareness. And then that seems to permeate out like a wave of, for example, anybody that spends time around someone like yourself is like, yeah, I want to be more like that. They might not even know what it is, but it reframes what's possible as a human. And going back to that health span, lifespan, what is health? What is our responsibility? And in managing our own health as opposed to turning it over to an external authority. And who are we, or what are we going to align with, and what are the cascading effects of that?
Yeah.
You know, Thomas Sowell always said in one of my favorite lines, there are no solutions in life, there are only trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want a set of trade-offs that increase freedom and opportunity as opposed to decrease it. And starting with your health, because it's the controlling element of awareness in the protoplasmic kind of identity, right? We're stuck in these bodies at this stage, and there's a reason for that. And
Yeah.
hey, let's see what we can get out of this machine while we're here and enjoy it.
Yes. And I think, you know, if you consider spirituality as a progressively expanding connection to a greater whole, just this process we're talking about of realizing there's a shitty supplement and a good one, between real food and shitty food, between commercially farmed garbage and you know, properly farmed food, then the concept of you are what you eat becomes real instead of just a cliche. And so your awareness of, wow, you know, my body looks and feels better because of that farm over there. So now you realize that what you are can't be separated from that farm, and it can't be separated from the water you're drinking and the air you're breathing. And so you extend that out and you realize, wow, you know, I am fused to the world. I am fused to the planet. And that, you know, that really beautifully aligns with one of Jung's definition of the self with a capital SELF, is everything that supports your ability to live. So once you realize that the self of us is the world, it is the earth, the water, the fire, the air, which is Aristotelian wisdom, then you start all of a sudden realizing, wow, if I don't take care of this planet, there's no way I can take care of myself. You know, what are you going to do? Live inside of a glass bubble, and everything that you're going to eat or drink is going to come from somewhere else. You'll have to have a factory to clean and purify, and there'll be nothing left of it by the time you do it all. So it's pushing us right back into an ecological awareness that turns out to be a spiritually enlightening, awakening process. And I remember when Bill Moyers was interviewing Joseph Campbell, what was this? The Power of Myth series. You remember that?
Yeah.
Really, it's an amazing series. And he asked Joseph Campbell, and I just shared this recently in my podcast with Sean O'Leary, but it's worth mentioning again. He said to Joseph Campbell, he said, what do you think the new cultural myth will be when it emerges? Joseph Campbell said, I don't know. I do know one thing, though. It will be earth-centric. And I think if we don't have an earth-centric cultural myth, which needs to be a worldwide myth, then the party's coming to an unpleasant end. We are in the sixth mass extinction, and this one was caused by us. But on a more positive note, I have to be a realist. I mean, I know you guys are realists too, but you guys have been doing a fair bit of research in and getting into neurofeedback and a lot of other things. And these are all things that are very interesting to me, and I can share some stories of my own as we go. But, and Wade, you just recently had a meeting that you've run, a couple of times now, where you bring people together and do this immersive thing with various technologies?
Yeah. We've coined the term metamorphosis. And
Metamorphosis.
And it's a combination of biological optimization that prepares you for a hyper-intense exploration of your capacity as a conscious being using a fusion of technology, science, shamanism, and leading edge neurofeedback technology. And neurofeedback is a very broad
term.
It's a broad term that really is leading to a bunch of devices that can enhance cognitive function, the mechanics of the cognitive function. You're saying whether it's networks or energy or low energy or high energy places to create balance or synchronization between the hemispheres or
integration,
particular neural pathway development.
Yeah.
And so you could use that to enhance skill set,
Yeah.
like, whether it's like executive function, or you could go down a more spiritual thing, like activating more intuition and awareness. So we, the whole field is traced back to Joe Camina in his lab in Stanford. And then, of course, we first got exposed originally to some neurofeedback technology with Dr. Hart at the BioCybernaut field. And we went into the neurofeedback program put forth by Dave Asprey at his 40 years of Zen. He was also a prior student of BioCybernaut. And then within all those structures, there's kind of your initial introduction to neurofeedback. And very much like if you first started going to the gym or just picking up running, there's a general consensus, and then there's kind of more technology within it. And then there's kind of like, where do you want to go at a mastery level? And at a mastery level, the nuances and variability of the individual are critical components, both in what's the physiological opportunities and limitations with that individual that you want to address, and then also the expertise required in order to navigate some of maybe the more elusive states that would enter into the domain of what we would coin the spiritual domain. And so we've been working on that process. Matt's been working with a particular individual that's kind of at the top of the field, and we've been cultivating that practice with our executive team.
Oh, good.
Good
place to start.
Well, and the sheer increase in capacity, the opening of the heart to create a more loving, connected environment in, what is essentially a business realm, which a lot of people say that you can exclude that, but we feel as a company, we want to maintain that front and center in all of our endeavors, because that's the heart of where you're connecting in service to humanity and to mankind. And the more I can keep my heart and my mind in alignment with that, the less likely for deviations or variances that faces every single company that hits a certain level of success.
Well, plus most of us spend at least a third of our life in our business family, if you will.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
If you work 8 hours a day, there's only 24 hours a day. Say you sleep 8, you work 8, and then you got a few before and a few after work most days. So, if you don't have coherence and stability in the business family, then, you get the problem of a genius CEO or inventor who can't get their products out to the world due to constant complications with customer returns and sales problems. And, I don't need to tell you guys, the whole deal, but I think that the concept of you applying this work in your business for me, would be very logical. It would be like, why not? And what would happen if you didn't,
No, it's been the number one thing for me in my evolution. Like at every level, there's more weight. I don't like the word stress. To me, it's weight is the correct word. And it's a perfect analogy to strength in the gym. The world's strongest man goes to the gym, and you can probably squat 700 pounds and do 10, 12 reps. The average person would get crushed.
Oh, yeah.
So our ability to build more resilience, endurance are paramount. The other big side of it too is that every time, let's get a little more into the mechanics. So usually the first thing you do is a brain scan. So let's start with that. So you do a brain scan, you can see where the flat spots are, you can measure reaction time, you can measure where things are overactive, which can lead to anxiety, to all kinds of weird personality issues. A lot of it can be traced to brainwave problems. So that's correctable as well. But you start with a brain scan, and it's also figuring out what's your strengths. Maybe you have high alpha, you have high theta, and these are things that with a bit more training can really become superpowers.
Yeah.
And it seems based on, I've brought a lot of people to train with me, that each person has one or two waves that they're naturally gifted in, and with a bit of development, they can really flourish. But first thing people normally start with is forgiveness work.
That's a good idea.
That's where BioCybernaut really pioneered their approach. And, Dr. Hart used to call it effective forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I never went to the research, but he would say that only 15% of people that want to forgive are able to effectively actually forgive on a nervous system level.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that when you train alpha, and we can get into the mechanics of how does this work, but when you train alpha and you bring up
what's the frequency of alpha? I can never remember those.
8 to 12 hertz.
8 to 12. So that's close to the Schumann resonance.
Yeah, Schumann's 7.8. So yeah, it's calm. It's calm but alert. It's a loving space. It's a space of gratitude. But when you're doing forgiveness work, what's interesting is when you first think about the pain of that experience, your alpha crashes. It'll dip.
Yeah, sure.
But if you actually forgive, you will get an explosion of alpha. You can see it on the chart.
That's beautiful.
So you can't really lie to this machine. There's a signature when people are actually doing the forgiveness work the right way. You'll see the drop and then bang. You'll see that explosion. So the way the technology works is you're creating a feedback loop. You're creating a dopamine loop where your brain's getting rewards constantly when it does the right thing.
Yeah.
So for an example, you set the software, let's train alpha at 8 to 12 hertz. And the way it'll reward you is if your amplitude goes up, meaning you're increasing the
size of the wave.
The size of the wave, the power of the wave, you will get positive reinforcement. The other type of reward is synchrony, meaning your right and left hemisphere
synchronized
are firing together, same direction, same way. So that's another reward. And your brain, by the time you notice the feedback, it's already 200 milliseconds. So the real key is just to let your brain do its thing.
Yeah.
The more you try to figure out what's happening, that starts to impede your progress.
Well, yeah.
Because that activates beta brain waves. So usually you start off with alpha, 8 to 12 hertz. It's a good place for people to get situated. And then you start training theta, which is 4 to 7 hertz. So that's really when you're merging with consciousness. That's where God becomes experiential, at least in my experience. Your time dissipates, your body's asleep, but your mind's awake. And it's a great state. It's a very deep, relaxive, restorative state as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the state I'm in when I'm doing remote viewing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great state for visions, for downloads, for communicating with your guides. So, when you're having that communion with your guides, you were talking about that, the sauna this morning, that's theta. The channels are just clear.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. So you probably have very high theta.
Well, I was noticing just as a point, as you cultivate the ability, there's a visceral awareness that starts to happen. So as soon as we went into the sauna and you laid down, I could instantly pick up a theta burst because I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow. I can feel the theta, and Matt's really sophisticated in his theta as well. So I'm familiar with other people's waves. Some people are alpha. So theta is like a download through the nervous system. Alpha kind of radiates out from the chest. Gamma is a cyclical up and down, like in a meditation, like Yogananda style meditations and these type of things. So you get to also, there's the data that's being readed out in a quantitative, but if you're tuning into, especially if you already have cultivated a practice, an introspective self-awareness, meditation, contemplation practice, whatever you want to coin that, you start to be able to feel what those ranges and energies are like with, sensory activation. Like before you called me, my intuitive on the way down here, I got this massive intuitive element here in the third eye. And I was like, oh, Paul's thinking about us. I don't know if he's flipping the cards or what he's doing. And then bingo, you called like a few seconds later, but I could actually pick up that burst before you came into, your waking consciousness. And that's the beauty of neurofeedback. It's all precognitive.
Yeah.
Right? It's precognitive. You're getting those reward systems. So you get yourself out of the way.
If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you've probably heard Paul raving about one of his absolute go-to supplements, P3OM from BIOptimizers. Well, they've given it a new name, Probiotic Breakthrough. It's the same amazing formulation, just with a new name. Here's a chat that Paul and Wayne had about Probiotic Breakthrough before it changed its name.
You know, BIOptimizers makes an amazing product called P3OM, which is a prebiotic product. And it's amazing for not only helping repopulate the gut with friendly bacteria, but as Wade will tell you, it's really, really an amazing product in case you ever feel like you're getting any kind of food poisoning or illness coming on. And Wade's right here with me, and he's the co-founder of BIOptimizers, and he knows more about P3OM than anybody. But I can tell you this, I've had nothing but excellent results and nothing but positive feedback from all my clients and friends that I've turned on to P3OM. So Wade, tell us a little bit about P3OM and why it works so well.
Well, P3M is, we call it the Navy SEAL of probiotics.
Amen.
Basically, its job is to kick out the bad guys in your body. Food poisoning is one of those things from bad bacteria. What we've done is we've taken an aggressive strain of L. plantarum. We put it into toxic soup, ran a sine wave to keep a few of them alive. And the few survivors we grow in very specialized medium to make a cultured, patented enzyme that has extraordinary powers. Number one, it survives the intestinal tract.
Yes.
And number two, it is absolutely hunts down pathogens in the body, bacteria, viruses, these type of things. And this is really where the future of probiotics is. It is about developing and culturing and creating super strains of probiotic, very much like the Navy SEALs go through a training, and these individuals have extraordinary powers to deal with chaos. And in today's world where we want to improve our immunity and our function and our gut health, P3M is head and shoulders above any probiotic out there.
So my understanding is it can be used daily as a supplement, but it can also be used in larger quantities as a defense measure.
We've tested this literally with over 100 of our friends who have been suffering from various times of food poisoning. And a handful of those guys, when you're in food poisoning, and within 20 to 30 minutes, you complete recovery.
That's awesome. And I've seen it happen myself. Angie has felt bad a number of times, and several of people in the house or family have. And I say, take 10. If that doesn't feel good in an hour, take 20. And you've told me you can't overdose on them, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's the beauty of P3M. You can't take too much. They'll fight off the bad guys, and they'll get your digestion rocking and rolling the way it should.
So if you want to have a healthy gut and you want some defense, carry P3OM with you wherever you go, airplanes, cars, business meetings, hotels, conferences, and you've got your Navy SEALs in the bottle, and they're ready for you anytime.
Spirit Gym with Paul Chek listeners now get 15% off their purchase of Probiotic Breakthrough by going to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and use the code PAUL15 at checkout. You can choose from 3 different sizes, and in addition, BIOptimizers always have special bonus gifts and additional savings when you get multiple bottles. So head to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and check out Probiotic Breakthrough with the code PAUL15 for 15% off.
I was going to say, it seems like an important next step for you guys in this work to get the heart involved and maybe use some heart math technologies.
Yeah, we'll do some HRV training and heart math, and
it's very important.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Because I do a lot of work with the heart, with my therapy and with my own, for probably a year or two now, my main spiritual practice has just been heart breathing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So as I inhale, I just visualize I'm breathing God's unconditional love from every direction. I visualize as like green, vibrant green lightning. I just love the color green, and it's the heart chakra. I imagine I'm standing in the middle of the sun and it's shining in reverse. So it's going yin, centripetal force toward the center. So I just visualize this light of God coming into me as this beautiful green healing light, filling my heart. And I see it expanding out of my heart and filling my body. and I hold the thought, I breathe God's love into my being. And on the exhale, I hold my heart chakra wide open. I just pour it out to the world. And I say inside of myself, I give God's love to all beings in all places and all times and all dimensions. And my dream is raising the tide so that as a gift to everybody, somehow in some way, and I try to train all my spirit gym practitioners to do that. We do that at the start of every Sangha. So I tell them, we want to lift the tide so that all the boats rise as a gift, not as a trying to trick people, but just say, let's just all rise up together. You can be as grumpy and nasty as you want, but at least the boats are rising, on the dock. So anyhow, I was talking about the heart breathing practice and breathing in unconditional love and then breathing it out to the world. But I was mentioning before we went on break that it's a really common thing when I'm working with traumatized people, which is a lot of people, because I have, 600 members in Spirit Gym. So I'm interacting with quite a lot of people, plus Chek students at all our trainings and clients and whatever. But it's really common for people when I'm working with them on healing and forgiveness that they cannot open their heart. They can't feel their heart. So and because the heart is so powerful and the research on the heart, which I'm sure you're aware of, shows that it knows what's going on 6 seconds typically before the brain's even aware.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very precognitive. But so I said to my soul, I need to help these people open their hearts. How's the best way to teach people to open their hearts that anybody could do?
Mm-hmm.
And what my soul taught me was wild and simple. My soul said, all you've got to do to open your heart is find anything that you're genuinely grateful for in your life
mm-hmm.
and say thank you and mean it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had, so far, every one of my students, I say, put your hand over your heart and just find something that you're genuinely grateful for, whether it's your food, your car, your clothes, your lover, your wife, your kids, your bank. It doesn't matter as long as it's genuine. And if you just feel what your heart does and you say, thank you, immediately open. Thank you. Just the words, the vibration of the words. And it's much more powerful if you actually say it out loud because of the cymatic effect.
Mm-hmm.
But just saying, thank you, just a miracle. It just opens your heart chakra right up.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, people can feel love again. They can feel the energy of the heart.
What's great too is if you're doing coherence training on the HeartMath software and you're really in a state of gratitude, that cranks your score more than anything else. And that's the cool thing with this technology, including coherence from HeartMath or neurofeedback, is that we can do these practices like gratitude, like forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of validates their power.
It does.
We can see the actual results using, brain
Technology.
waves or heart frequencies. So it's really empowering that way. It's a good validation.
I think another element that was surprising, I've been doing a variety of practices for 25 years now, is refinements within your process that were maybe not transmitted in whatever teachings that you have. If you don't have, let's say, a real bona fide spiritual teacher, which are rare by nature, you start to become intuitively aware of elements that get validated in a quantitative way. But I think the real gain is it opens up a little bit of freedom of exploration outside of the technique, because a lot of people mistake the technique or the tool with the state.
Mm-hmm.
And the state is independent of that. The tool is a way to access it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the surprising discovery in what we've been able to accomplish at Metamorphosis, is rather than taking you away from your spiritual, intuitive, natural nature, it was a way of amplifying and validating your own free-form exploration within those states and those fields and within your own unique gifts. And now that we've had multiple sessions with a select group of our executives, we are able to leverage everybody will go through, Matt will probably illustrate all of the different brainwave states and what they're connected to. But for example, Matt's a naturally gifted in theta, right? A couple of our guys are naturally gifted in alpha. My preference is gamma, which is correlated to my spiritual practice. And so all of a sudden there's an amplification and there's an experiential aspect. And then we find ourselves sharing in the collective field. So for example, Matt, as we're training theta, can give some insights of how we can explore within that range, because maybe he's more sophisticated in that particular brain wave. And so the expansion and sharing that happens within the group is as much of a dynamic as the technology itself, and it becomes self-validating and also creates a freedom. And one of the challenges, I think, when you get in any kind of spiritual practice through the teaching or a school or an organizational element, a lot of it, especially when the teacher goes, becomes canonized into a rigid structure.
It becomes mechanical.
It becomes mechanical. But if you go to the great teachers, they always talk about coming back into that heart-centered aspect, that intuitive soul awareness and amplification, and the freedom from within it, as opposed to a rigid ecclesiastical doctrine, must be this, must, not have this, it becomes the do's and don'ts, as opposed to an intuitive awareness, and then validating my own intuition and my own journey that needs to unfold. And that was probably the most surprising discovery for myself, because I think anytime you're talking technology and spirituality, there's a natural aversion. Is this a distorting element? Mm-hmm. Is it going to something that's going to take me away or mechanicize the process? Mm-hmm. And I feel that we've captured the right balance between those two things. And then the collective group that you're going with, I think, is every bit as important as just the technique and the process itself, because there's a sharing. And now, of course, Matt and I recently experienced a shared feedback session where we're literally connecting both of our brains in synchronization with machines. And we were able to take, for example, our alpha training to levels that we couldn't do independently, which validates the reason for maintaining spiritual company.
Yeah, well, it's like cycling in a peloton. There's no way any one man can ride as fast as a group of skilled riders in a peloton, because they're carrying each other. What you're describing, interestingly, is actually Gnosticism. If you study Gnosticism, and Jung speaks about this in his writings as well, and I've read books on Gnosticism, how Gnosticism got started is a bunch of guys getting around a campfire with some kind of regularity and saying, what's working for you? Mm-hmm. And, I'm trying this new technique, and it could be alchemists, it could be yogis, it could be any, number of people. Back in the old days, in certain places of the world, you had Greek influence, you had Indian influence, you had Eastern, there was all these convergence of influences.
Persian, Mesopotamian.
All of them. So they would just share and say, this is what's working. Then we'd try it. They would, as a group, just try it. Oh, wow, that's really cool. Or, that didn't work very well for me. And he might say, oh, well, try this. It was really just an open sharing. And I think that's more powerful than a canonization of anything, because then you're actually getting involved. And when somebody's sharing something with you, you have to pay attention. It's like when you're learning a new skill. Mm-hmm. If you're teaching a kid how to ride a bike, they've got to pay attention or they fall off. If you're learning to shoot a weapon for the first time, you got to pay attention. So when you get people sharing new things, it keeps your mind fresh. It keeps you in the game, so to speak. Whereas it's very easy for the mind to wander off if you basically build an engram that runs by itself, because now your ego can start dancing. And it's like, if you're jogging, it doesn't take long for your body to do that all by itself. Next thing you know, you're doing bank accounts in your head or something. You're not really getting to a flow state because you're doing something that's too easy for the body to do all by itself. The other thing that you made me want to share is that when I first started working with Master Fong Ha, he said, I want you to do a gong, which is a 100-day commitment. And he, over the period I worked with him, he gave me 3 different techniques to do for a gong. And I said, you know, what's the function of a gong? He said, if you don't work with a practice for at least 100 days, one, you won't cultivate enough life force to have any more than you're consuming just through your daily physical, emotional, and mental activities. So you got to build a bank account of chi. And he said, 2, you have to put enough time in with a given practice to learn it and to feel what it's capable of and let it season in you. And then you go through the sort of the learning phases of consciously incompetent, you don't know what the hell you're doing, to conscious competency, and you reach the point where you're unconsciously competent. And then that opens the door, I think, to the nuances. Like there's been small changes I've made in various types of meditation or Tai Chi practices that in the beginning, I didn't have enough awareness of what was happening inside of me. But once I reached the point where I could feel how the chi flows through my body with a different type of exercise or how it's affecting my heart or whatever, I could then say, oh, well, you know, I could use a little more here and I could slightly tweak the practice or redirect it. And so I think one of the things that it's important for people is to put enough time into a practice to actually get through the learning stages so that you can really have all of your awareness on what's happening inside of you and from a spiritual perspective, what's happening through you or to you. And I think that's one of the things that I see a lot of problem with my students is they're just jumping all over the place from one thing to the next, from this gadget to that gadget to this practice, and they're doing it, you know, 3 or 4 days and then they get bored. But there's a certain level of discipline to any real spiritual practice or even physical development practice or psychological developmental practice or mental development practice. It just seems like people, the attention span has shrunk with the greater access you get to video games and internet, the smaller the attention span gets. Mm-hmm. But I think it's gotten to the point where the world's actually now like a scatterbrain. So I think these things that we're talking about here actually are as fundamental to world healing as cleaning the environment or anything else we can think of.
Well, I think Josh Waitzkin, in his book, The Art of Learning, who's mastered a variety of very complex disciplines, he has that concentric circles, these smaller and smaller refinements that lead to real mastery. Mm-hmm. And I think he's probably does one of the best jobs of illustrating that in a process of what true mastery is of development, which is not, it's never an end state.
No.
It's never an end state. And then maintaining that, even at whatever level of proficiency, maintaining that beginner's mind.
Yes.
Right?
That's the most important.
That's been, I would say, with Metamorphosis, that it's helped me with that as a practical example for, you know, maybe a benefit. When I grew up as a child, I had to do a lot of manual labor and handiwork and things like that, and I didn't see myself in that world for a long period of time. I'm glad I have the skills, but it wasn't something that was that interested in. After the most recent Metamorphosis, in every one I have some sort of truly profound, remarkable, esoteric breakthrough. Mm-hmm. But in a practical sense, I came back to my house and I wanted to build. My wife bought a little house for my son. Mm-hmm, cute. One of those little houses that has all like the zippers and lights and all kinds of little things to stimulate.
Big house, little doll houses and things.
So I was going on a trip and it arrived and I was like, okay, I got to assemble this. Now, of course, like a lot of these things, I think it came from China with half the pieces missing.
Yeah.
Terrible instructions.
Yes.
So I get this, it's 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I've got an early flight the next morning, but I said, look, I am not going to leave this house without having this house assembled for my son. And I sat down with it, went down into my office, fired up my vape bag, thanks to all your, got all my Paul Chek approved herbs, right? And got into the process of being in beginner's mind with this assembly. And I went through the whole thing. And normally I would just go, you know what, I'm just going to get somebody to do this. I don't want to do it. I'd have a resistance from that past wound of exposure. And this one, I was like, no, I don't know where the end of this is going to be. I've committed to just taking the next step. And as that unfolded, it was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours till 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning it was. I was down there figuring out how to assemble this without the tools to assemble it.
Right.
And had to come up with some elements. And eventually it finished itself.
That's good.
And I brought it back up to my son. And I was like, wow, if I hadn't gone through that process, I probably would have just found a reason not to complete it. But my love for my son was so active and available that allowed me to just stay with the process and have the patience to dedicate 4, 5, 6 hours to that process and stay in that beginner's mind. And then that became an insight of that's really where it's at. Like, today we're subjected to a whole new level of skill development that's required to adapt. I read a book called The Future Shock. I think it was by Alvin Toffler a long time ago in the 1970s. He said in the future, humans was not about what you can learn, it's what you can learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Yeah.
And I think many of our education institutions have not caught up to the rapid speed of change.
No.
And then we have people that are just on the change aspect and have lost themselves in keeping up with the machine. And I was like, oh, here's a practical application that I can take away from this concentrated effort and apply it in a real world that has a positive impact. Now, of course, my son's not aware of any of that stuff.
No, not yet.
But I am.
Yeah.
And that became a gift, an unexpected gift in a practical nature that allowed me to transcend what was a prior limitation or an old wound in a very practical sense and not carry that wound forward in a detrimental way that would be slightly harmful to a full expressed experience of my son.
Yes.
And
And
his experience. That was beautiful.
What you're describing, I would put in metaphor, love has wings, when we...
You mean it's not Red Bull?
Well,
It says Red Bull gives you wings, but love has bigger wings.
different kind of wings. There's lots of different wings out there.
Yeah.
I was a paratrooper. I had wings too. But the thing is that when we have love for ourselves and love for others and love or passion for our work, we are carried into experiences and dimensions of awakening and possibility that you can't get to without love. It's like I as I tell people, get clear on what you love enough to grow and change for, because I can't help you as a therapist till we get that figured out. Or the inertia of society will always anchor you in your routine because you'll be just like everybody else doing the same thing. And that's what a culture is, a bunch of people doing the same things. Unfortunately, that can be very unhealthy. But, what you're describing to me is the love of your son overcame the normal reflex resistance to putting something together that's probably going to be a pain in the ass without the tools, and I'll just hire someone to do it and it'll be over and walk away. But because there's so much the gift of giving it to your son and the gift of giving the process of putting it together, whether he knows how it went together or not, it puts daddy's love into the gift.
Correct.
And so it's in the gift. And my point is just that I think that, there's nothing more powerful for any aspect of development than love, which is why it's important to get clear what you're going to spend time and energy doing. Otherwise, you're just going to be average. And as Jung says, the average man can never be successful. And I think we're in a world that's drowning in average everything, average behavior, average performance at work, average performance in bed, average performance in the gym. And unfortunately, everybody's taking pills and gadgets to try to compensate for being average, but it really is, it's a heart issue, in my opinion.
Mm.
If you don't have heart in it, it won't matter what gadget or pill you use. You got to, like you guys do this stuff with neurofeedback and all the things you're doing because there's a passion and a love for it.
It's a passion project.
What I see, you guys are pioneering, you're exploring. And,
It's my favorite thing in the world to do.
Yeah. And I'm like, as you know, I'm a passionate pioneer of lots of things, but like for me, this library is a record of my road trips into mystery, and I find those things are the most rewarding. Like I can give you a classic example, which you'll both be very familiar with. How many times have you started doing research on something and then you looked at the references and you went, oh my, that sounds like a really interesting article. And you look that up and then you find more references. And next thing you know, you've gone way down a mountain trail, but you've made discoveries that you never would have made if you hadn't have gone on what seemed like a detour, but turned out to be a treasure find.
That always happens when I'm formulating. That's kind of the process, right? Like berberine breakthrough, as an example, was let me look at every pathway involved in glucose metabolism, the transport, the insulin, and then you get into these rabbit holes of ingredients, and then you find another ingredient, and that's how you find a lot of gems.
We live in a world where stress is constant and distractions are endless. If you're like many of my clients juggling family, career, training, and spiritual practice, you've probably felt the toll it takes on your clarity and vitality. You may even be someone that can't get through the day without drinking coffee, even when it's not making you feel better anymore. That's why I'm excited to share something that's become part of my daily ritual, Nandaka by Peak. Nandaka means the sword of wisdom. It isn't your typical energy booster or coffee substitute. Nandaka is a sacred blend of organically grown adaptogenic and nootropic botanicals designed not to mask your fatigue, but to nourish your nervous system, feed your brain, and support deep, sustainable energy from the inside out. That's what true vitality is all about. Unlike most mushroom products that are stuffed with mycelium grown on grain, Nandaka is made from 100% fruiting bodies. That's where the medicine lives. You get the full spectrum of benefits of lion mane for mental clarity and nerve regeneration, reishi and chaga for modulating stress and inflammation, and ceremonial cacao rich in anandamide, the bliss molecule, to uplift your mood and calm your system. Even the cacao butter serves a higher purpose, acting as a delivery mechanism to carry these nutrients deep into your brain. When I take Nandaka before podcasting, teaching, writing, or conducting a therapy session, I notice something profound. The energy is steady, the focus is clean, and my creativity flows without resistance. It supports the body, the mind, and the soul all at once. And here's the truth. If your brain and nervous system are overstimulated and undernourished, you'll always be inviting burnout. That's why I don't treat the symptoms. I go to the source. And Nandaka aligns with that philosophy. I'm truly impressed with Nandaka, and that's why I'm excited to share this powerful, effective support and nourishment to help you stay vital throughout each day, to bring you many of the core nutrients most everybody's brain, nervous system, and body needs today. Currently, there are over 18,000 five-star reviews on Peak's amazing products, and Nandaka is trusted by some of the top minds in wellness for a reason, including me. These products actually work. Tune in, reconnect, nourish your core. Try Nandaka and feel the shift. Nandaka is a powerful ally, and right now you can get 20% off for life, plus a free starter kit with your first order and a rechargeable frother and helpful glass beaker for mixing your Nandaka exclusively at peaklife.com/Paul Chek. Once again, that's PIQUELIFE.com/PAULCHEK. peaklife.com/Paul Chek for 20% off for life plus a free starter kit with your first order. The point is, in this regard, without love, you read the abstract and you believe it's true.
Mm-hmm.
With love, you look at the scientific structure and setup to say, could you even get the results that you're giving with this setup? And then let me see what beliefs and ideas built their model to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and one of the things I've found over and over again, I'm sure you have too, is I've actually pulled thousands of times every reference that was cited by an author to see how they got to their conclusions, and found many, many times that their citation of and use of a reference was actually completely not what the author said.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so now we're just being misled by somebody's falling in love with an idea and willing to, you know, manipulate reality to get it. And so what's the point though? The point is, without passion and love, you won't do the work even to really look into a piece of research to see if it's real or how they came to their conclusions. And that can lead to you making choices in your life that ultimately lead to a lot of problems, especially when it comes to your health.
That's a good segue into one of the most important points, which is feedback is the most powerful transformational force that anybody can have in their life. You know, think about coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching's a feedback loop, right? You tell, you know, the practitioner shows you their work and then you give them feedback. And now we're using technology. You know, think about an Oura Ring, Fitbit, all these devices. You wake up in the morning, tells you, hey, sleep was great, sleep was bad. Oh, I ate too late. Let me fix that. So the feedback loop provides us the ability to look at what we did and that worked and that didn't work. And what's, again, incredible with neurofeedback is that it's a constant stream of feedback every second, every millisecond.
Yeah.
You're seeing and you're learning, and your brain's self-regulating. And that's one of the most important points around, let's say, neurofeedback versus meditation. You know, I tried meditating for a long time, and it was just a struggle. I mean, the only time it felt good is if I was in a group and I could kind of tune into the vibe. But by myself, it was just a struggle until I did neurofeedback. And then it felt like, oh, this is how I do it, you know, because
That's the sign of a left brain dominant guy.
well, neurofeedback is kind of like a GPS. It tells you this is the right direction, that's the wrong direction. It's like playing hot cold with your kids.
Yes.
You know, so your brain is going to get to the destination a lot faster than if you have to figure out without a map, without a GPS, how to go somewhere you've never been before. And especially if it's, all, different, and we can get into the brain waves, but if you've only been in alpha or beta and you've never gone to theta, it's like, where do you start? How do I get there? So technology kind of gives your brain the path to getting there. And again, it's giving you validation along the way. So we talked about theta, then you get the delta, which is deep sleep, but there's also awakened delta, which is interesting. So some people do have high delta awakened.
What's the frequency of delta?
1 to 4.
Okay, and what's going on in that frequency range?
Well, it's again deep. If you're in deep sleep,
Okay.
Stage 4 sleep. That's they call that delta wave sleep.
Okay.
So it's very restorative.
What's the wave frequency for dreaming?
Well, dreaming is usually theta. It's REM sleep.
REM, yeah.
Yeah, usually you're in theta.
Yeah.
More theta-ish.
And what's the frequency on theta?
4 to 7.
Oh, so it's pretty low.
But one important point that's a great tip for people is that everybody hits theta twice a day. Once when they're falling asleep, you hit that hypnagogic state where you're starting to dream, but you're aware of your dreams. And if you'd want to, you can kind of pull out. So you're in theta.
I spend a lot of time. I'm in theta all the time. I'm coaching people because I have to track them.
That's the tip. The tip is when you hit that, try to hang out there.
Yeah.
Instead of just falling asleep, which most people do.
I can tell you a technique that anybody can use to learn how to get there without any gadgets.
Yeah.
Steiner teaches this. To get into a hypnagogic state by practice, lay down on a couch or somewhere comfortable, get a piece of silverware and a cookie sheet or a plate, and you try to relax yourself as deeply as you can. And if you fall asleep, you'll drop the post of silverware and it'll wake you up, and you keep practicing till you learn to stay in the hypnagogic state.
That was the Salvador Dali strategy.
Yeah, Dali and
Is
Edison,
that right? Yeah.
Dali and Edison both used that technique.
I didn't know. I learned that from studying Steiner's teachings, and that that was a very, very long time ago. That's one of the ways I learned how to get into that state was that very technique.
Yeah. And then, so then Gamma Wade talked about it, and I'll connect him so you can share his experiences. Wade's had some good gamma breakthroughs, but you get delta, then you get into sub delta, which is even slower. And we did some sub delta training. It was really transformative. It felt like the void, and it was very on the nervous system level. I mean, Wade, share your experience, because then it was profound for you.
Yeah. So when you're going down to sub delta, that's like about 0.5.
Yeah.
It's an extremely slow wave. So if anyone's watched the movie Inception,
I've seen it.
okay, it's kind of like the dream within the dream within the dream.
Right.
You're down in a state, and for me, was both visual and visceral. I was now in a state which was the infinite field of potential from which everything emerges. And it's like you could actually see how empires and conceptual idealities rise and fall within this and go back into the infinite field. So when people are talking about the quantum potential and all that stuff, and I always, I have an eye up of, that word, and that's when here is an experiential element of seeing what that actually looks like. Now, my first trip down there was a little discombobulating, to be frank. Like, it's like, okay, I didn't know how to quite navigate that space. The next time I went in, okay, now I've got a little bit more, and each time as I began to get familiar, I began to navigate within that realm, and the time distortion factor was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so you start, what is, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes down there feels like eons of potentiality being explored in a conscious state as opposed to just in a completely subconscious realm. So the realm's always present, but now I'm able to actually tune in my awareness to that field that's available and accessible to people, but they just don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And so that was like, wow, unanticipated again. I didn't have any idea what sub delta was like. I didn't know what to experience. I had no impressions of it. I had nothing. And then all of a sudden I'm coming away with an experiential component. And that's, faith is what you always want to engage in. Everyone talks about faith, and everybody has faith in something. Even an atheist has a faith in their own belief system or parameters, which I find is ironic. So the whole world's running on some form of faith in something, whether that's conscious or not. But once one has, especially in the pursuit of one's spiritual soul evolution, had what some people call mystical or spiritual experiences, or something that does not require validation from the outside world, technology or anything. It's true.
That's what Jung would call a numinous experience.
Yeah, and it's so base and so real and so aware. It's like exciting, and then to come back, it gives you a filter when hearing outside information. It is, you can almost tell who's accessed that space and who's talking about accessing that space. And you see the difference between the two. You have a discernment, which is really valuable in exploration.
One of the challenges with that state is that the ego has to let go.
Yeah.
And I've been in that state very, very deeply many times. And if you go far enough into it, it's a death experience. So you have to completely, because you will become one with the void, one with the emptiness, and there's no identity anymore. And so people struggle. And I think having technology to guide you to see when you're maybe getting afraid and pulling back because your brain will start speeding up could be very helpful. I was able to get there, countless times doing Tai Chi and various types of meditation and going into samadhi states, which is pretty much that. But one of the thoughts that I had is, have you ever seen any research looking at the brainwave states that people get into when they take a full hit of DMT?
I know one guy, Jack Alorica, has done the 2-hour drips, and they were scanning his brain. I don't think they published the papers. I know he was one of the participants, and I haven't seen the published data on that.
I'd like to see what that is, because, depending on the individual and again how ego constrained they are, because a hit of DMT can really put you into a massive struggle, or if you're brave enough to let go, you can become one with God. But you pass through many different dimensions, such as you go through what I would call the higher mind, where there's archetypal geometry, and that's one of my favorite states in a DMT journey, is when you see all the different geometrical forms that they feel to me like they're flying at me and going right through me. And they all have different colors and vibrations. And I'm clairaudient, so I often notice that they make different sounds as well. And it's like musical tones. Mm. But I was just curious, it'd be interesting to see, to correlate the brain state based on measurement and what the person was experiencing, that they could then recount to you, oh, well, the first thing that happened is, and then this happened. You could be able to see, what's the perceptual experience versus the recording of the brain activity, and see how those two line up.
We've tried almost every molecule and measured their impact. So certain molecules will boost certain frequencies. Ketamine, for an example, is great for theta. It'll drive people into theta very deeply. Now, if people are not used to navigating theta, then,
I've had several people have to come to me because they've been injured by ketamine.
Yeah, it can be challenging, right?
Yeah.
So I think, there's a lot of discernment around what molecules people should be taking. One of the things that happens during metamorphosis, and also happens with all plant medicine, is default mode network reset.
Yeah, first it dissolves.
Well, first it dissolves to reset, but seeing the world with fresh eyes is really powerful.
It's rebirth.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, and that's happening through, and we're training 6-7 hours a day. Mm-hmm. When you go that deep, that long, there's a massive default mode network reset.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that'll amplify that. That's the other thing. I mean, we're taking about 110 pills a day during the training
of different molecules,
different things
for different effects.
So this is not optimization. This is maximization. We're trying to do maximum transformation, minimum time. And one of the key principles is stimuli, just like with training. Mm-hmm. But then you start getting into what's the maximum recoverable stimuli. Mm-hmm. And when you start pushing it to 6-7 hours a day, then the bottleneck in the maximization pipeline becomes recovery, becomes nervous system, myelin sheet, sleep. So we've had to problem solve a lot of different systems. And, a big part of it is neurogenesis. So giving the brain, all the BDNF, the nerve growth factors, things, the glial cells growth factors, like the plasmagens, dihexa. There's some really powerful molecules that will, cerebral lysin is probably one of the best ones, that if you take, they're almost like steroids for the mind. Now, again, doing these things, if you're not training or learning or trying to build a new skill.
Good sex does that for me.
Yeah.
Steroids for the mind.
Yeah.
Steroids for no mind.
Well, exercising in general just improves BDNF. Right?
Yeah, so, especially the rock garden.
Yeah.
Stay alert and stay alive, baby.
That was powerful. So, so that's part of it too, is really, let's give the body everything it needs to recover, and also to have the most fertile brain as possible.
So it seems to me from hearing you that a lot of these 110 supplements are actually growth and recovery factors,
yes,
but not molecules to change states.
There's some of that sometimes.
Because my concern would be is how are you able to measure what's doing what when the half-life of any one of those molecules could be pouring over into the next input?
Well, one of the things we do is, we work with a practitioner, and if people really want to go deep, and she's incredible. I mean, the more data you give her, the better she can help. But, let's start with the prep. So the prep's 5 days. We do 5 days of NADs, high dose, so that we get mitochondrial fusion on day 4, day 5. And that gives you a massive boost in energy.
NADs is?
NAD plus.
Oh, NAD?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's a mitochondrial. I can't remember all these supplements. I'm such a
That's
down in
an
there dirt
IV.
guy.
And we'll do like 750 milligrams usually for 5 days. And that's a powerful energy booster.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do cerebral lysin. We'll do procaine therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever done procaine?
I've done lidocaine, marcaine, I used to do xylocaine. I used to inject trigger points. So I had a whole range of canes that I used.
Well, there's a practitioner we work with, Dr. Tudor, and he's a shaman. He's incredible.
Former surgeon.
His accuracy with the needle is incredible. But yeah, he'll inject your ganglias, and then the parasympathetic reset is incredible.
Mm.
It's a deep, deep parasympathetic reboot.
I'd be very careful injecting a ganglia with a hypodermic needle.
No, he's a wizard.
You'd have to be, because that cuts the nerve fibers.
Yeah. It's great for injuries as well. Sometimes people get emotional release. We'll do hyperbaric. We'll do floating. So we're just trying to basically come into the training as resourced as humanly possible.
It seems like a good idea.
Yeah, because
that was the limits before.
Yeah.
What would happen is, as we would try and push the envelope of what we were able to do in previous trainings, you'd hit day 3, day 4, and the physiology is given out.
Yeah.
You just can't
You
push
just
the
have
brain,
willpower
and
and
you see
fumes.
all of your numbers crash.
Well, not only that, your instincts kick in and you go into survival mode.
Correct.
So once the body feels threatened, the mind
it.
is tethered.
You're done.
Yeah.
And so most neurofeedback, if you were to go to an ordinary practitioner, is spaced out over 20 sessions over 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. What we're doing is we're compressing multiple modalities, and we've broken it up now into a very sophisticated element of training in the morning and training in the afternoon. We'll get to that after we go through all the physiological prep to get ourselves in an optimal state. We are outside of a city environment, so we have low EMF, lots of time in nature, very specific about individual dietary choices, plus, ensuring that we have enough nutrients to support the nervous system, brain development, neuroplasticity. All those elements are all part and parcel, both in the prep and then getting to, and then we move it into a circuit in the morning where we're working particular fields to set us up for the brainwave state. Just like a person, for example, between meditation might do a neuromuscular activation or a set of exercises and breath work and these sort of things. We're going through a similar process using these variety of modalities, which all fall under the umbrella of neurofeedback. And so maybe Matt can walk us through how, like, the different modalities and the different elements and what they're doing and stuff. So, because unfortunately what happened, it's like training.
Yeah.
What is training? Well, there's endurance training, there's, explosive training, there's martial arts training, there's weight training. There's all these forms that fall under the umbrella of training, but there's, vast areas to be explored in each one of those areas.
Have you ever had anyone have the wheels come off though? Meaning
we haven't. But that can happen. I mean, if you're training with a bad practitioner and they train the wrong things too much, I mean, again, we haven't seen it, but we've talked to Dr. Drew and he's had to correct certain people that have gone to other places.
If you have listened to even one episode of Paul's podcast before, then you will know that he is passionate, and some would say even fanatical, about the quality of the food he eats and where it is sourced from. That is why the Chek household only eats pasture-raised meat, wild-caught fish, and organic produce. And that is why we subscribe to Wild Pastures meat delivery service. Each month, Wild Pastures delivers a box of meat that has been raised by family farmers in the USA using regenerative farming practices. 100% grass-fed and finished beef, pasture-raised chicken, and pasture-raised pork, as well as wild-caught seafood. You can customize the selection in your box, add on extra when you know you will be feeding more people, or change your options each and every month. You might be thinking that this will be too expensive for you, but Wild Pastures' mission is to offer the highest quality meat at the lowest prices because they want to transform the meat industry. And that means that more people need to be able to choose meat that is raised right. Their pasture-raised animals are part of a natural ecosystem. Their farmers use rotational grazing, practices that mimic nature, and so do not need to use synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or antibiotics. This beautiful process doesn't require the external resources, such as massive amounts of GMO grain, required with environmentally depleting conventional methods. And best of all, the meat and fish taste amazing. And for Paul's listeners, Wild Pastures are offering you 20% off your subscription for life, $15 off your first order, and free shipping. Seriously, you can't find a better deal for top quality pasture-raised meat. Go to wildpastures.com/Paul Chek. You don't need a promo code. Just visit wildpastures.com/Paul Chek and start choosing the goodies you will have delivered to you in your first box.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because when you're starting to use this many different types of molecules and stimulants, the system can go over into overwhelm. When you're taking people into brain states that are unfamiliar for them to be in consciously, you can run into shadow elements. You can run into all sorts of stuff that takes years of psychotherapy to get to.
Yep.
And it might, because this is the same thing that happens with psychedelics.
Yep.
And I've had people that are going crazy with nootropics and winding the shit out of themselves and, basically frying their brain because they're just running the system too hard. So point being, I know that if you don't do this carefully and skillfully, that, it's like when you're running downhill and your legs get going too fast. Next thing you know, you're flat on your face on the concrete and it hurts. But I was just curious because there's so many things that you guys have to keep an eye on. It's really almost like a surgical process to do this.
That's where Dr. Drew Pearson comes in. I mean, he is the wizard. He's been doing it for decades. Again, he's an absolutely incredible man. He's a wizard. He's a healer. He's all of these things. And he's the guy that really knows what to look for. He can see the signatures. He can see who can handle what. And, you're not trying to push people beyond what they can handle. You don't want to break people. So there's definitely some.
This brings a question up for me is, where are you guys trying to go with this? Because what you've just described is not a cheap process. Most people could never afford to do this.
No.
Nor the staff, the supplementation, the quality. I mean, you're talking a lot of money already.
Yes. Yep.
But where do you see, aside from your personal gains and the few people that can handle this, where do you see this actually going to be beneficial on a bigger scale?
Yeah. Well, first of all, even if it was just for us, the rest of our lives, to me, that's the win. I mean, so there's a very selfish desire to continuing
there's nothing wrong with that.
Our own evolution.
Well, you guys, you're pioneering, right? You're going out and doing research and you're putting yourself as the subject, which is,
and we're seeing the results, and the results are incredible, not just for us, but again, our executive team, and we're seeing the transformation. I mean, the rewards, the ROI is just worth the money, and if you're a high level executive entrepreneur and you can get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% better performance, I mean, that's going to pay for itself multiple times over. And I would say, you come out of the trainings, first of all, let's just talk about benefits, right? And people want to know, okay, what's the benefits of doing this? First of all, you're going to clean your RAM and you're going to gain more RAM. So you're going to come out with the ability to think about more things, handle more things. You can handle more weight.
Process more.
You can process more. You can handle more. Mental resilience goes up significantly. You can actually train the cerebellum. And the cerebellum has 80% of your brain's neurons. And it's a really weird thing to train, by the way. Like, it's its own thing. But when it pops, when your cerebellum goes to the next level, your resilience goes up in commensurate. I mean, it's incredible. So mental endurance, resilience, EQ. If you do an EQ test before and after, you'll see a huge jump. Level of consciousness. Again, if you look at the map, Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness, and just asking people what their experience of life was before and what it is after, it's a massive jump.
Well, it'd be like going from being numb to being very open and sensitive to like an empath is, you know?
Yeah.
I think
That's been a journey for me because, you know, I would say not tuned in, and over time, you know, with the trainings, I've become very tuned into other people.
I can tell just from the last time you've been here,
Mhm.
your field is way more open and much more expanded than the last time you were here. So
Thanks.
something's going on, you know,
Yeah.
I can feel a lot more heart in you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not that I would ever have said you didn't have heart, but like I'm very sensitive to all these things. I read people for a living and I'm clairvoyant. So if I want to, I can do what your brain scans are doing.
Yep.
But, you know, I noticed right away when I got next to you that your field was much more stable. Wade, you're always quite stable. So I wouldn't say that I've seen a big jump in you, but I can feel a big jump in you.
Thanks.
Meaning that, you know, it's like, think of it this way. If you're trying to improve your sprint time, you can get to about 97% of your speed fairly quickly with skilled coaching and training. But to get that last actually 1% could take you 10 years. And so, you know, you've been doing this sprint training a long time. And then just from the last time you were here, as soon as I got next to you, I went, wow, something's going on with Matt. He's much more open. And I could just feel the coherence in your field.
And for me, it was the refinement and also not becoming overwhelmed from empathetic capacities.
That's
that I
another
developed.
one, yeah.
So in other words, being able to regulate that in a way that
Yeah.
I wasn't able to regulate in
That's
the past. So
very
people
real.
who are on the high empathic kind of element, a lot of them struggle with managing the fields coming in.
Yes.
So they become chameleon-like, or they take on suboptimal situations because they
Yeah.
become so invested in someone's dark side suffering
Yeah.
that they get consumed by it. And I think that was more the tendency for myself. And now I have a capacity to regulate that in a way that I didn't have before, which was really helpful for me in my own spiritual endeavors. Because, you know, that for me, that was above and beyond everything else I'm doing. To me, my work, what we do at BIOptimizers, those are expressions of that journey, not necessarily the goal and an element of. And so with raising that, we have a set of highly curated spiritual values that we instill inside of our company. And so we read them out every week. And, you know, you sing from the hymn book, but are you singing from your heart or from your head? Once people going through metamorphosis, it moves from their head into their heart, where they embrace the energies and intentions behind everything that we're doing. And for Matt and I, that's magnetically charging, because, you know, we started this company, two guys with $100 and a crazy idea.
It's almost hard to believe.
It is.
You know what it reminds me of? Danny and Damon Way started DC Shoe selling T-shirts that they were printing out on a picnic table at skateboard parks.
It was like that. We were printing our own books and then assembling them and mailing them ourselves. And we started on Google AdWords with $100.
Right. And where we shared a common element is both of us were personal trainers at this time. And we fell in love with the feeling that you get from helping someone discover a new capacity within themselves. So
oh yeah,
that's a remarkable thing, that we're actually hardwired to feel good about service.
That's why I quit boxing.
Right.
Because when I became the trainer of the boxing team, I was guiding them on nutrition and conditioning and doing massage therapy for them. They would come back to me starry-eyed and going, whatever the hell you're doing, man, I am like faster and stronger and better than they were winning more fights. The coaches were like, holy shit. The doctor was saying, shit, we're hardly having any injuries anymore. And I realized it doesn't matter how good I get at beating people up, I never feel this good. And so I made a decision that I would devote my life to helping people live their dreams and achieve their goals, because the best I could do, even if I won a world championship as a fighter, the best I could do is fight off brain injury, and I wouldn't have grown. I wouldn't have really done anything that changed the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the gist of all of this.
Well, and that's what happened in the evolution of our company. So as we infuse that, as a trainer, as you know, when you're seeing clients, you only have a time limitation on that. So it was like our company was the genesis of how do we expand this to a greater element of individuals. And then you hit capacity limits, which is what Matt was talking about. Weight, like you've got this set of skills, you got this set of abilities, you got this much time to learn, but now the expansion of the business, you're at your limit. And that's how people, end up into stressful situations, or their marriages break up, or their health declines, or they get into addictions or whatever. So then, okay, here's the challenge I have. How do I increase my capacity? And this became a way to increase capacity. And then you can only take that so far because you need executives and people to run different elements of the company. And it's like, well, if what we found is if we can bring them into a metamorphosis training, and then the values and intentions of the company now became visceral for them, not just doing a job. All of a sudden, you don't have to disseminate so much of the company. The company's philosophy is embedded and its intention is embedded with them and embodied by the individuals who are executing a bunch of things. You don't have to worry about it because you know and can trust that because of their experience that they've had with this, is they get the greater picture, which is service to mankind, service to humanity, service to health, service to the divine, service to spirit. And if you can, and one of the things that is my prayer that I take into that is, how do I instill this idea into people so much that they're encouraged to pursue it and feel it viscerally? Because once you've had that feeling, there's no better game in town. It is the game, and it can be as simple as keeping that awareness when you're dealing with a clerk at the store, when you're communicating, or you run into an elderly person on the street that needs a little help. You're running an executive team and someone's having a personal challenge that's leaking into maybe what you're trying to accomplish. There is an empathy and awareness to where they are, plus what is the mission, and then coalescing those two in a really eloquent way so that you keep the mission clean.
Well, also when you get a group of people more coherent, it has a stabilizing force on everybody. So if someone comes in after a fight with their spouse or something, just being in that space, that's why people love gurus.
Yeah.
Real gurus are very coherent, stable beings. So when people get around them, they have what they think is miracle healings, which is really just bringing their field into coherence. And it's just like you reboot the default mode network, it reboots their, heart, it reboots their mind, it reboots them on a lot of levels. Problem is they get addicted to the gurus, not realizing that they're supposed to become like that. But my point only being is when you get a staff of key people doing this, it actually has a profound knock-on effect through the whole company, even when people are not next to each other, because you're intentionally interacting with each other. So the field of intention carries the medicine.
It does. And let's go back to your question from a few minutes ago, which is, what's the vision of this? Where can we go? Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're going to set it up in a way that we need 5 people. It's just 5 people max at a time, because.
I mean, in the training or to run it?
In the training.
In the training.
Yeah, it's 5 people max.
It's a lot of equipment you got to have to monitor all these. It's expensive stuff too.
It is, and we have 4 neuro assistants with Dr. Drew.
Right.
So there's a whole team, dedicated to setting each person up, and you got to move the electrodes for each person. And it's a lot of custom setup. But and then we do have a list of people that, just through us talking about it or they've heard about it, want to come and train. And
well, is there a place people that might be able to afford something like this could connect to you guys in case they can put themselves on a list?
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes, and anyone's interested, they can join the hot list. And it's not going to be cheap. Again, none of this stuff's ever been cheap. I mean, BioCybernaut, 40 years of Zen, and we're a whole other level.
Yeah.
So, but just in cost, our investments both on the prep, we bring in a world-class chef, the team, we'll rent a mansion every training, we bring in all the equipment. So it's a serious commitment.
Set and setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've really built an incredible system where we can create a training and a new house every time, new group. And it's awesome.
Yeah. It's a great thing. There's two things that I think I want to share. I know you got more to share and I'm happy to hear that, but just to keep with the line of thought I had is, I think that one, you guys are both very practical men. And so I think your own experiences might lead you to a synthesis process where you actually realize there's aspects of this that could be done at a level that would help the masses far less expensively. For example, if you coupled the right supplements with an EM wave technology from HeartMath and the right mindset training for pennies on the dollar.
Well, there's a great device called Sensei. And I should connect you with them. They're great. And it's a great device. It's the best consumer level neurofeedback headset. And it's great. You can just train with your phone. You don't need, there's no goops. So you just wet the electrodes a little bit and you just put it on and train. And yeah, it's not as in depth as Metamorphosis, but it is very good. It's a great starting point. So there's some cool tools out there that are, useful.
Well, and it's the equivalent of you go into look at Metamorphosis training would be very much like people come here for a weekend seminar. Now, okay, they've been transferred the knowledge and a little taste of the experience, but then to integrate it, they got to go home and practice this regularly over a period of time. And so, there's where a commercial device can come in, like the Sensei. By the way, just we invested in the company just to be clear about that, because we were of that mindset is like, well, how do we create a follow-up device that can be easily used in the home without the technical proficiency of a neurofeedback practitioner? And providing that after they've had a full, robust experience and saying, okay, I'm a theta guy, I'm an alpha guy. I can go home, put that on, run a number of programs on that and start enhancing my capacity and that skill. And maybe I come back to Metamorphosis again, maybe I don't, but now I've got a toolbox that I can take out into the world and start applying in the field that's relevant for them. And so who knows where it all goes? It's hard, it's just such a, when you ask that question, what's so new and exciting? Well, frankly, this doesn't really have a lot to do with what most people would think of BIOptimizers as a supplement company. And here we are spending time, effort, and energy, and money, and resources, and all this stuff on this start because.
But it is BIOptimizing.
It is.
It is.
It is.
And here's when I look at a lot of ways to look at business, right? I mean, one of them, of course, and the most common is economic. But when I look at Metamorphosis and I say, if we bring in 5 high-level creators, executives, entrepreneurs, artists, whatever type of person it is, and we level them up 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever percent.
They're going to be world leaders.
The reverberation, the ripple effects is game changing. It's world changing. So that's the exciting part. And, you are a great example of that. If you look at all the people you've trained, like the ripple effects of your teachings over the last few decades are unfathomable. Like there's no way you can even
I don't know.
Hold in mind all the impacts that your teachings have had.
Yeah.
It's the time of year when many of us refocus and recommit to lose weight, improve our fitness, and in general set new health goals for the coming year. The problem is that typically these resolutions don't last beyond the end of the month. And that's not because people lack information. Most people know what to do. But they struggle because they've become disconnected from their body's wisdom and from their own inner voice. And that's why Paul created Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1. Yes, you'll learn the fundamentals of breathing, eating, moving, sleeping, drinking, and thinking. These are the 6 Chek Foundation principles, which are guided by the 4 doctors: Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, Dr. Movement, and Dr. Happiness. But more importantly, HLC1 is not just another course or program. It's a powerful immersion to help you get in harmony with your unique design. It's practical, it's experiential, and it's deeply transformational. So join us this March at the Rainbow House in Southern California for 3 days led by Angie Chek. If you're a coach, a practitioner, or someone simply ready to take ownership of your life and your health, this is your next step. Spaces are limited as we keep the group small so everyone gets personal attention. Visit paul.chekinstitute.com for more details and to claim your seat. That's paul.chekinstitute.com to sign up for Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1.
Well, one of the things that people ask me, because I get asked all the time about various health things, and I know you're too humble to probably admit it or acknowledge it, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go there anyways for our listeners. As I said, well, if you're in the health field and you're into any aspect of this, and you're really exploring deep, eventually you're going to end up in the mountain and be at Paul Chek's house. So I don't know how long that journey might be, where it's going to go, but soon, if your quest is true and you are really committed to its highest evolution, you're going to end up here, one way or the other.
A lot of them have,
and it's a beautiful thing. And I know when I got my first opportunity to come here, I mean, I had heard about you 15 years before.
Is that right?
And then I got here and I was like, wow, I finally qualified.
I remember when I first met you, we were at a big conference somewhere.
Yes, you were getting a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh, right.
Up in Ontario.
Right.
And I was aware of your field in the building.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm very respectful of someone that has a lot of people tugging on you in a public event. And then we got to kind of mesh almost at the very end of the event and just
I'd heard about you and I'd heard about BIOptimizers, and because I'm not really a supplement guy and I've had so much garbage put in front of me, but when Penny told me, actually, she said, Wade Lightheart, the founder of one of the founders, I think she thought you were the founder, but he's right over there. You should go see him. And I'm like, oh, I got to meet this guy. But I remember the first time I met you, I went back to the booth and Penny said, how was it meeting Wade? I said, you know what? It feels like I've known him forever.
Yeah.
It was just like a deja vu experience.
Yeah,
like
great.
I somehow I know this guy.
Yeah. It was a beautiful
a soul
thing.
brother.
Yeah.
It's great to have that,
Yeah. And then, we got Matt down here as well.
Yeah, it was great too to meet Matt because, Wade's been telling me about you for years. So when I finally got to meet you, it was kind of like knowing a man for 10 or 20 years and never meeting their spouse, and all of a sudden, like, not that you guys are in that kind of relationship, but to see the other half of the, because he's always telling me about how you guys' minds are different, but they work together. And so I'm like, okay, I've been taking BIOptimizers products for years now. I've met Wade, but so to meet you is like, finally, I can see the other half of the engine,
Yeah, correct.
It's like having half a flywheel, there's something else making this thing spin.
Exactly.
The other question that I wanted to ask you guys, because I think this is an important one. Now that you've been doing this metamorphosis training and exploration, and obviously you're going to continue to pioneer and pursue this, when you look back on what mystics have been teaching and yogis have been teaching and all the great teachings throughout antiquity, whether it be Tantra or breathing or various meditation techniques or mental emotional self-management techniques, what do you see that they identified?
Gamma.
Was it the gamma?
Yeah. When they've taken the brains of monks with 25,000, 40,000 hours of meditation.
Yeah, Dalai Lama talks a fair bit about this.
Their baseline gamma is just a whole other dimension.
Yeah.
And in a way, we didn't really cover gamma, so do your best to explain what that experience is. And by the way, all this stuff is really ineffable, but we're going to do our best to
Yeah, you mean the
try to
gamma?
put things
The
in
gamma?
word. Well, most of these states are hard to describe.
Well,
right?
it's like being on a deep medicine journey and someone asking you what happened.
Explain the color green to a blind man. It's tough.
Right. What is the gamma frequency?
It's 40 hertz and up, but way to explain.
So what's the highest state?
Gamma, probably.
Yeah.
Which rides on top of theta. So again, it's not always, all these waves are always happening. And what happens is, you're going to get a burst in gamma, and it's kind of riding on top of theta.
Because I remember when I started reading some of the original research on meditators, and the Dalai Lama's published a lot of this stuff in his conference he does. And I've read books that are his conferences. And I interviewed Keith Pelletier, who's an expert in epigenetics, who's also done a lot of this type of research and worked with mystics that can pierce themselves through and through and not bleed and stuff like that. But the point I'm leading to is that one of the things the scientists running the research were shocked at is that these meditators were going into gamma. They didn't think that it would be these high state brainwave states. They thought it would be low. And so they were like, wow, this is unusual. And it just surprised them is all I wanted to share.
Well, I can share my experience, and people make what they want from it. So, of course, we've talked about this before, I was a follower of Yogananda's techniques of meditation, which you had a lot of exposure to as a young man.
Yeah.
And he said it was the airplane route to God.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that actually mean? It was there was all these different formats. It was a fast way to go. I was like, okay. And so he talked about the revolving currents and bringing the chi or kundalini energy into the spine, then bringing it up into the brain. And my first experiences of doing neurofeedback, I'd be running that process and not scoring very well, particularly because at that technique, they weren't measuring gamma. And oftentimes there's a suppression of alpha originally as you go into that state, and then alpha opens up. Some people access alpha. So how you get into those states could be the reason for various practices and traditions that have emerged over time. So that was disheartening at first, but I was convinced. And then, I went to 40 Years of Zen and met Dr. Drew. He's like, no, we can measure gamma. And I was like, oh, great. And of course, that occurs with stillness within the body. Any sort of distortion in the muscularity or the nervous system. So a lot of these practices was to quiet the nerves so that you could get tuned into these subtle energies. And then when I hit my gamma explosion, which is what a lot of people would say is a kundalini experience, where suddenly as I was going through the breath work, the energy comes down and pow, it's emerging through the entire nervous system. And if you're not familiar with it or experienced around someone that's practitioner, you'd probably get scared because, it almost looks like the person's having a seizure.
Yeah.
You're in a state of absolute ecstatic bliss, right? So it's like an orgasm ripping through consciousness in your body.
Yeah.
And it's perpetual, and it comes in waves, and your whole body might like lifting off the chair, and you're getting this energy. But in your state, in where you are in your conscious self is in this, just this absolute stage that you do not want to shut down for any reason. So you imagine like an orgasm going on for an hour and a half. It's like, this is the best game in town, right?
It's union with God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then
I know that one. Love it.
And then as I became more and more with the technology, becoming more and more attuned and more balanced, and I consulted also with a number of monks in Self-Realization Fellowship. I said, hey, what do you do when you get these Kundalini experiences and you're, twitching around like that? And they're like, well, you got to practice bringing it more into the spine and up into the brain. So now I can handle a much higher burst of that energy with less of the efferent nerve distortion. Because what's happening is it's so powerful. It's like the lightning going through. And then what started to emerge is I started to understand the traditions of your masters.
Yeah.
Where they talk about the line of gurus. All of a sudden, you're now in an intimate, real world, esoteric connection where you're getting divine instruction from that person outside of the normal time-space continuum that we're living in.
Yeah.
So now when prior to, you're reading about mystical experiences, you're reading about these energies, entities, gurus, teachers who are providing a shield or a guidance or a pathway in these nonlinear realms. You know, you talk about your guides, and well, now it's like, oh, this isn't something that's I read in a book. This isn't something I heard about.
Right.
I'm having a legitimate experience that's valid for me, in alignment with how I've created a structure within this process or these practices that you might be studying preemptively. And so for me, that became so validating to the 20 years of meditation work that I put in before. Now I'm having that. And it's not about gaining the experience. It's about amplifying the confidence of the practice that you're doing. And then even if someone isn't doing that, let's say they're not doing neurofeedback or whatever. This summer, I was spending time in my original little group in Vancouver. I took my family up there, and I'm sitting around with the group afterwards. And now I have an awareness when someone's communicating where they are in meditative, and I'm able to offer valid elements to help them undo the knots in their own practice. So now I'm seeing a transference of the awareness, not from an idea that I read in a book, from the experiential reality that I can say, yeah, I've gone this pathway, and here's some of the things that I found, and there's where I came the obstacle. And here was the key that you might want to try to experiment to unlock that next element. And that became extraordinary validating for me and for the other people, where I could help them and assist them in a way that would help them have a more robust awareness of our spiritual nature, and how that can be profoundly influenced, not just when you're sitting at church or in your meditation practice, but it becomes something that carries with you.
Well, it has to go into real life. Otherwise it's potentially a distraction.
Correct.
I mean, I have all sorts of my students come to me and tell me about all the enlightenment experiences they have. And I often look at them and say, yes, but can you balance a checkbook?
Yeah.
Can you eat right? Can you take care of your kid? Can you take up the responsibilities of a man or a woman in society? Because I don't give a shit how many DMT trips you've done or how long you've meditated in a fucking cave. If you can't bring it into the real world, it's just, you know, some form of masturbation.
Yeah. It reminds me of the scene in Autobiography of a Yogi, when Yukteswar transfers cosmic consciousness to Yogananda as a student, and he goes in this ecstatic state, and he gets done and goes, okay, well, let's sweep the porch and go for it. He goes, Yogananda, you must not get over drunk with ecstasy. There's much work for you to do in the world. Now, had he not, he'd escaped intoxicated with the field, would have went off to the Himalayas. We've never heard of him.
Right.
The whole yogic awareness might have been stunted for who knows how long, until someone that could hold that and had that divine intention to help others to open up that doorway to Western civilization, which he was able to accomplish. But that little element of, and of course in Zen, it's like, hey, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Not shirking your duties. And I think that's to me, that's a discernment of real spiritual endeavor. Spiritual endeavor that isn't embodied in improving the rest of the components of your life is not helpful. No. And I think that true integration of that means that it carries over into every aspect of your life. It's transformative of your personal challenges and limitations, or your core wounds, and turning those wounds to scar tissue, and then eventually dissolving the scars till it's not aspect. And this comes back to, you talked about emotional regulation and coherence. With the neurofeedback, we can see the coherence measured on the quantitative analysis, but we experience it in a qualitative way. And then those around us, to give you an example, my wife, who was taking her master's in psychology at the time when she first got exposed to us doing this, and she saw what was happening for me, and she's intimately involved with me, and so she knows me very well. And she's like, I need to change my discipline for my PhD on this particular field, because, and she did a meta-analysis on cognitive behavioral therapy, plant medicine, and neurofeedback. And neurofeedback became more universally available for people, because a lot of people can't do plant medicine. Plant medicine obviously needs a a
lot of
wise shaman to
skill.
be able to disseminate it.
Yeah, they're
And then
rare.
cognitive behavioral therapy without, a lot of people are just stuck in a loop with that. And
That's
so,
Skinner. That's B.F. Skinner
right.
stuff. That's
So
World
what-
Economic Forum.
yeah. So what was able to do is to take that therapeutic model, some of the elements of the molecule elements, and then the neurofeedback in a combination to start unlocking aspects. And for me, that was just, I can't think of a better game. And there's so much more to go. I mean, I'm not claiming any state or any status or anything, but what I can say is it's been such a positive influence for me in my life and my family that I
see
keep
it
going.
for both of you. I think what I feel in my soul is that the two of you are consciously or unconsciously doing the groundwork to develop something that potentially is more accessible to more people, even if it includes the utilization of ancient techniques with modern technology, and even the right molecules or the right food combination, whatever it will be. But I mean, I've been around you way a long time, and I've got enough of a sense of you because I use your products and I know how good they are, that you guys you're in a process of synthesis. And it's a real internal digestive process, because you have to have a fair bit of experience to know what you're trying to synthesize, right? So each time you run these metamorphosis trainings, you'll go deeper and deeper. Your sort of spectrum of awareness will expand. Your inner experience will expand. If I had to guess, I'd say sometime within the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to come to a great realization that could be a new wave of technology mixed with, various techniques that could create a new wave of possibility for people.
That'd be awesome.
Well, it's kind of like, you look at, did you watch the new F1 movie?
Yes, it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. So like a lot of car technology originates from
racing,
Formula One driving, right?
Yeah.
All the technology,
all the sports, motocross, all of them, they're all trickling down.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. I think where Metamorphosis will always be a high-end bespoke experience for people that can afford it, and people also that are spiritually open to that kind of transformation. Like we're not just using the word metamorphosis. We've seen it. And I'll give you one great example. It's one of our favorite stories so far, but one of our executives came in, was ready to leave his girl because she wanted a child, and he didn't. And that's usually a deal breaker.
That one's
right?
an old one that's
a
still active today.
And on day 4, he saw his child, and now his daughter's 18 months. So, those are the kind of experiences people can have and will have. And we have plenty of other ones like that. So,
yeah, well, that's really good. It's exciting. I kind of get a secondary buzz because I feel your passion for it, and I can.
Well, we'd love to have you come and so.
Yeah, well, when we can work it out and it works for you guys and it works for me, I'd be interested, because now that I've learned more about it from you, all this stuff interests me.
Well, one of the important elements of that, and I will tip my cap to Dr. Hart way back in the day, which has been an advocate through. There was a 20-year period where it was pretty much banned and was only used in the military. He stayed with it all that time, but he studied the Zen Rinpoche in San Francisco and the whole group and got their brains. And one of the stories was, and he could see this in the coherence of their brain and their capacity to access various states, and it was measured in that. And it became a validating element because he was able to take people who had followed a traditional practice for an extensive period of time and develop various levels of mastery within that, and then use that as a benchmark to move towards with these technical integrations along with whatever practice the person was doing. Well, now, I think one of the most important elements is for people such as yourself who have cultivated a significant level of awareness. How do we capture that in, what does that look like from a brain standpoint? What does that look like when you're doing this. And first off, it's a validation element that is really hard to dispute from a quantitative side. So the skeptical scientist gets exposed real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Secondarily, now that we have a validation on that, okay, now we're taking what is kind of the mystical, the esoterical, and we're putting into a quantifiable form that gives validation and also exploration for people to put time, energy, money, etc., from the world that we live in the material world, to say, hey, here's a set of individuals who are acknowledged and recognized for their capacity in these unique states. What does it look like? How do we measure it? And then how do we take what they're advocating inside of this in an accelerant,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can accelerate, which is the traditional guru-disciple relationship. Not that you want to be a guru, but that any teacher is basically saying, you could do 10,000 experiments. I've done those 10,000 experiments. Out of those 10,000, here's the 10 that I think are worthwhile sticking to,
Yeah.
and forget the 9. So you're compressing time. And going back to the Alvin Toffler, the ability to learn, relearn,
Mm-hmm.
unlearn, and relearn. Now the speed of transition is, technology is displacing workers, the acidification society, all these other forces that you talk about in all your podcasts is like, okay, well, how do I stay relevant and keep upright and support my family and stuff? This skill development and the speed of implication of your ability to adaptively move from one field to another. You're seeing this in the medical field. Doctors who are frustrated with the ecclesiastical doctrines and the control that's taking them away from what the essence that drove them to become a doctor, and all the rigidity that it takes to be a doctor is not insignificant.
Yeah.
And then they get caught in the system and can't practice medicine.
Right.
Well, you're seeing a breakaway from that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they're hamstrung by their conditioning inside of that.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a way that we can take a person like that and say, boom, we can accelerate their transition so they stay on their path and expand that outside of those domains, and provide the validatable data to bridge the gap from the quantitative to the qualitative, so they can follow their soul's journey.
Yeah, what I was feeling inside of myself is that this technology and this approach that you're using is actually making the invisible barrier between the subjective and the objective much more permeable.
Mm-hmm.
Things that used to be considered subjective are starting to become objective.
Yep.
So, a way I would describe this from my own experience of working a lot with my own unconscious is that, one of the things I said to my unconscious is, why do people call you the unconscious? Because whenever I communicate to you, you seem to know a hell of a lot more than I do about anything. And my unconscious, who tells me its name is Ananda, said, Paul, the reason that the unconscious is called unconscious is because most people's perception is limited to their ego,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't realize that everything else, which is much the greater aspect of them, is actually where consciousness is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But through my unconscious said, through working with me like you are, the analogy that was given is a periscope on a submarine. The ego is like a periscope, but the more you work with your unconscious, the bigger the periscope gets, and eventually it basically it has room for the whole universe in it. You go right back to the divine ocean. And you realize that's what's been living through you and breathing through you the whole time. And so part of my quest is to expand the range of my consciousness so that more and more of what was unconscious that might have showed up as what we call intuition, and I didn't know how it got there. Now I'm actually really in touch with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important, so there what you see is I'm showing you that what was previously very subjective,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know how it arrived. Now I'm having a conversation with that part of myself. And I know I'm not crazy because it tells me things, I go do them and they turn out to work better than anything I've ever tried. And, for example, what of all the practices I could be doing spiritually, when I go to my soul, which is part of the unconscious, and say, what do you want me to do? What, if there's anything that I could do right now to grow myself and do what would be the best for me to do at this stage of my own life and development, what would be my soul said, stick to your heart breathing, because there's the amount of growth you'll get. And I've had wild experiences doing heart breathing. I won't even start telling them all because it take a long time, but I've had experiences that blew my mind. And the kind of experiences that I used to have in deep mushroom journeys or ayahuasca journeys or DMT journeys are happening to me fairly regularly, but now I don't have any drug influence in me. And so it allows me to, it's kind of like when you're talking about Kundalini rising and how you start vibrating. When you're on a deep drug experience, it's hard to hold yourself still and to hold your mind still because of the power of the drug. But when I'm doing these things through my own spiritual practices, I'm not being shaken around. I'm being amazed, but I'm not like having to fight a Kundalini rising experience. It's almost like I'm with the greatest teacher I could ever imagine, and it lives right inside of me. And I'm like, oh my God, and this is why I spend so much time teaching my spirit gym practitioners how to do this stuff. And in my tarot workshops, like I use tarot for soul guidance, which is my workshop on tarot. I use the tarot archetypes as a means of guiding people into these abilities. And then they realize how powerful tarot is if it's used for spiritual growth and development, not just a pack of cards that you kind of do psychic readings with or something, and you don't know how you got these things or what it really means. But anyhow, without a sidetrack, I'm just saying that this is all me saying it seems to me that you're doing what I think is long overdue, which is making that barrier between subject and object permeable, because really what we're talking about can be stated metaphorically. This is the divide between religion and science, isn't it?
Yep.
Religion's very subjective. And isn't it interesting that many of the theories of everything, like string theory and money worlds theory, they're all now things that cannot be proven scientifically, but they're becoming accepted as plausible explanations. Where 25 or 30 years ago, that wouldn't have gone over very well. There's too many people that are caught in their left brain. If it's not weighable or measurable, it's not real. But now we're realizing that everything that we think is real turns out to be just as unreal as the unreal.
Well, no, the technology is powerful enough to pick up a lot of things that we just couldn't see before.
Yeah, exactly.
Gamma waves is a great example. That's relatively recent.
Yeah.
So before you couldn't measure it, you couldn't train it.
Yeah.
So as technology advances, it more and more validates a lot of spiritual practices that you feel good, you intuitively know it works.
Yeah.
But now science is just saying, okay, yeah, you were right.
Yeah. What you've just said reminds me of something from cosmology, and that is in the last 10 years, many of the great astronomers and with the help of things like the James Webb Telescope have identified that at the very, very far edges of the universe, they're seeing clear evidence of new galaxies.
That's right.
Which is going completely against our whole belief about the Big Bang.
The whole model's
because
out the window.
What they're finding is that the entire universe is giving birth to itself constantly at every dimension and all levels. So it kind of means we have to get rid of this beginning end idea because there is no beginning and end of God.
I call it the protoplasmic hangover. So much of our ego identification is what's corrected or connected to our five senses and our training and our experience in the sense of self and I.
That's the problem with
the small self. And then the big self is how that relates to consciousness itself. And that was, at the Copenhagen conference, where Einstein says, well, God doesn't play dice. He wanted a mechanistic universe that was provable, independent of human. But the Heisenberg's like, no, well, as soon as you bring awareness to it, you change the outcome of the experiment because you are not independent of the universe. It's permeating through you. And that is the big aha.
Yeah.
Once you embody that, not as a conceptual idea, but as an experiential reality, well, then you can see both sides of the equation with a balanced perspective and leverage what's valuable, discard what's not, move forth in life and do the best you can while you're here.
Well, Einstein at one point, because he felt quantum theory was so weird, he said, I want to know that the moon is there when I'm not looking at it.
Yes.
And if I was standing there, I would have said, Dr. Einstein, there is always somebody looking at the moon, even when you're not looking at it.
Right.
And that doesn't include humans. It includes any being in any dimension. So just because you're not looking at it doesn't mean that it's not being looked at. So you're safe. The moon will be there. What a great journey, you guys. Thank you. I don't know how long we've been going, but I could talk to you guys forever. I just don't want to have a 5-hour podcast that it might take people forever. You know, with the attention span today, we got to kind of keep it manageable, but we can do this again whenever you're ready.
But the right people are probably still listening.
What's that?
The right people.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. Yeah. Although my longest podcast ever, Lucifer Christ Ahriman, was 5 hours, and it was my most listened to podcast in 2023.
That was an extremely valuable podcast for myself because the whole aspect of the Ahriman element, which is a Zoroastrian concept, which gave birth to a rise of a lot of the religious philosophies in Mesopotamia, and then Judaism and Christianity, and all of these originated out of that. But the Ahriman part was excluded from a lot of that.
Yes.
And when you provided that for me, I went through that podcast several times. Remember, I told you I had to just unpack it because that new element reframed so many elements that were as a gap in the teachings and practices that I had, and it became unifying. That was a massive value. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, folks,
it's called Lucifer Christ Ahriman. I think it's episode 250.
Beautifully done, and how you had the different readings and
well, thank you. I actually took an entire month to do nothing but develop that podcast outline. The script was 93 pages. And that was the first one. Angie and Penny and I all participated in a role in it, as you heard. But I felt that understanding was so important that I said, I will do whatever I've got to do my best to take very complex material, such as the energy fields and all the stuff I explained, so that hopefully that people could understand it. Because ultimately, as I shared with you, Ahriman comes from the water and earth element in us, and Lucifer comes from the fire and air element. So these things are always inside of us, and we couldn't be here without them. It's when that they get out of balance that it causes trouble. But I just wanted people to realize, as the world's getting more and more crazy, ultimately, it's really just mirroring us back at ourselves. And that when you understand that these two forces, Lucifer and Ahriman, are balanced by Christ consciousness, or the Tao, it really means the more crazy these two forces get with regard to their imbalances, the more we as a collective have to become more centered and calm and aware, which is exactly what your Metamorphosis program is all about. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I envision you guys being able to take the fruits of that and create something that can be applied on a mass scale so that people can learn how to balance these forces of consciousness. In tarot, it's the two sphinxes, the black with the white and the white with the black. That's why the chariot card number 7, tarot 7, shows the charioteer standing with in the chariot with two sphinxes in front of it. And there's no rigging. It's because it's his mind that controls the chariot. And so that archetype's all about learning to balance these forces of consciousness. And the dark one is Ahriman, and the light one is Lucifer. And the charioteer represents Christ consciousness, being balanced and able to control these forces. And that's really what you're describing, like when you're having the gamma burst, learning to control these powers. And when we're having an emotional urge to bite, to center that, and that's a multi-lifetime process, but we need to get more focused on things that really matter, because we're being very distracted by religious dogmas and ideologies and isms and all the shit that the globalists are trying to throw into the mix to basically destabilize us. So I think at the end of the day, what I work on through the Chek Institute and Spirit Gym what you guys work on with excellent supplementation and helping people stabilize themselves from the inside, and now your Metamorphosis program, it's all actually, you could say it's Mother Gaia working through us to bring herself back into balance. And I think it takes, we all need to open ourselves to the deeper guidance, just like I'm opening myself as often as I can every day to my unconscious, because it's not unconscious at all. It's me that's unconscious. It's the ego that's unconscious. But thank you guys for everything. It was a fantastic day. It feels like you just got here a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, wow.
Well, at least
where did time go?
We'll get you past the traffic now.
That's been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for doing the research you're doing and putting the time and the energy. I'm sure we're all going to benefit along the way. And thanks for all the research you're doing with your products. And it's just great to have people like you guys in my life. So appreciate it.
Yeah, today I feel like I got the full Paul Chek experience. The rocks, sauna, cold plunge.
Good smoke.
A lot of bags.
Good espresso.
Yeah, it's all part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, good. That means we don't have any dogmas limiting our joy. So there you go. My students always ask me, how do I know if it's okay to smoke pot or do psychedelics or whatever? I say, here's my rule. If it enhances your ability to live your dream and meet your responsibilities, it's useful. The day that it's getting in the way, you better put a limit on it or stop doing it, or you're playing a dangerous game. Mm-hmm. And that's true of meditation and all sorts of other stuff.
True. Yeah, everything.
You can easily be a bliss bunny and not be productive in the world.
True.
Wise words.
Well, thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to all my sponsors, including BIOptimizers. Thank you to all of you for anything you buy from the sponsors. Because when you buy from my sponsors, guess what? You're putting money in the hands of the farmers that are producing the top quality products that they're buying, which means you're supporting the planet, you're supporting yourself, and you're supporting the podcast, and you're supporting the owners of these companies that are moral and ethical people, just like Wade and Matt. And that is a quadruple win. I can't think of a better way to go than that. I'm grateful for all of you for applying anything you can from any of these podcasts that I have with these amazing people that show up here. I'm excited to have another podcast with Matt and Wade as soon as we can make it happen. I'm sure they'll have lots to report on their Metamorphosis project and everything else. And I will do my best to bring you something awesome next Tuesday. Lots of love. Aho. We are safe. We are home. We are whole. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guests, Wade Lightheart and Matt Gallant. Make sure to check out BIOptimizers' New Year, New You sale, where for a limited time, you can get up to 26% off select products and bundles. And some bundles are on sale for up to 45% off. Visit bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and use the code PAUL15 at checkout to get the best deals possible. Also check out the BIOptimizers Nutrition Coach program at bioptimizers.com/shop/products/nutrition-coach. For more interaction with Paul and to share ideas and ask questions about the topics discussed in this podcast, we invite you to join his Spirit Gym program and community. You can participate in live Q&A sessions with podcast guests, access the members forum within the Spirit Gym community where you can chat with other members, attend weekly virtual meetups with Paul, and study his comprehensive Master Key online program. Explore the options and subscribe today by going to myspiritgym.com. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the show on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.